Well, I just want to welcome everyone. I'm so glad you could join us. And I want to just thank you for joining this CHEAR research staff meeting. It's the first quarterly meeting of the academic year. And this forum was started earlier this year, but paused like so many things due to COVID until today. And the goals of this particular forum are to enrich and also to broaden shared learning opportunities and build up the community across CHEAR research staff and beyond. One note for the meeting today, we'll be using closed captioning, and this may be distracting. So if you want to, you can actually turn it off for your specific viewing. And you can do that by going down to the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little gray button that says CC on it. Just click on that and you'll be able to stop the closed captioning on your view. This presentation today is actually session 2, and we will be presented an in-depth view of Tableau. Session 1 was a more high-level review of Tableau, and the recording is on our CHEAR website on the methods and seminar page. And what I've done is I've put the link to session 1 in the chat box so you can access it. So I'd like to, with great excitement, present our speaker today, Dan Stanish. Dan is a business intelligence analyst here in the Department of Pediatrics. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science from Eastern Michigan University and has worked in data and programming analyst roles here at the university since 2001. So he's been here a little while. Dan is a Tableau desktop certified associate, as well as an advocate for digital user empowerment, including data. In his spare time, he likes to garden and to tinker. And I did ask him for a little bit more information, and he said his COVID skill is learning how to make sourdough bread. So welcome, Dan, and we'll turn it over to you. And so you can give us an in-depth view of Tableau.
Oh, all righty. Hang on. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I don't see the halo, but okay. So, hi. I am Dan, and I just thought I'd just do a brief recap of some of the things I talked about at the last meeting in case you weren't there. So I'm Dan, here to talk about Tableau. So today I just want to talk through some of talking about the training, help, and resources that are available. There's a lot of free resources that are available if you're interested in learning Tableau. This 1-hour session will not make you an expert if you are starting from zero, but it will be a place that you can start. So there's a lot of great resources available from Tableau. U of M has training site and other things and lessons and things. So then, we'll talk a little bit about the training and help resources. Next, I'll start talking about Tableau Desktop and going over some of the vocabulary and nomenclature about the different pieces of Tableau Desktop, and we'll make some simple graphs based on a built-in data set in Tableau Desktop. And then after that, then we'll move on over to the Tableau server. So Tableau server is where you can publish workbooks that you have created, and then we can talk about some of the features and functionality that is available on Tableau server. So I know I kind of started this in the previous slide, but training and help resources. So if you're interested in Tableau, you can always contact me. There is also MyLink has a Tableau 101 session. That's hosted by Information Quest on Central Campus, as well as EDIS in the Med Campus. They co-teach that class. And so that's a great course. It's a great resource, and there's a recording. My understanding is there's a recording. I have a recording link if you're interested in watching the recorded version. Certainly HITS can give you some help on that if in particular questions regarding Tableau or data access. They are a great resource, and they can then help you get to the next step. And for general Tableau tips and advice and places to do things. Tableau Community is a Tableau server. It's a Tableau community server where people talk on the forums, ask questions, get answers. They have challenges and things too, so that's kind of fun. So Tableau, once again, as I said last time, Tableau is the ability to visualize data, and there is a great deal of information that can be compacted and summarized in a very efficient way using visualizations, so that you can look and see insights in a very short amount of time. Tableau is also data integration, being able to pull data from multiple different kinds of systems, large numbers of them, and making that data accessible and usable. Tableau is also the ability to distribute, so that you can, by posting something on a Tableau server, a workbook that you've generated, you can have users look at it on their computer, on their laptop, on a tablet, and using a mobile client. So it it lowers that barrier for getting people to be able to see that data and be able to act on it. And lastly, Tableau also has access control, so that you can specify who you want to be able to see it. And also there's some granularity in what they can do, whether they can access a site, access a workbook, but maybe not its data or things that are similar, be able to modify, that sort of thing. So again, real quick, Tableau Desktop allows you to connect to data and make visualizations. Tableau Server allows you to make things available to others with a star. So the star means that Tableau Server has some ability to do editing and creation, but Tableau Desktop is the most flexible in that regard. And just for a general walkthrough, generally, the way the whole process starts is that you have a question. You have a question you want an answer to, and maybe you're not really sure where that answer is going to be. So you find data, find or create data. Like maybe you send out a survey and you get a whole bunch of survey responses back, and then you want to make sense of that data. So then you would take that data, you'd put it in Tableau Desktop, you would possibly explore that data, and then develop a visualization, even if it is something as simple as a text table, or something more advanced like a radial chart or bar chart or pie chart, possibly. And then you would package that up and have that in a workbook. You publish that to Tableau Server, and then from where it's on Tableau Server, people can connect to it using your standard web browsers or a mobile client. So starting with Tableau Desktop. So for Tableau Desktop, I just wanted to start by talking about the different pieces, the interface of using Tableau Desktop. So let's start at the bottom. So this is already a little bit pre-built workbook, and we'll go to a completely blank workbook starting from scratch in just a second. But I wanted to talk about how this is laid out. But first, I want to go to the help menu. So for the help menu, if you're interested, there are training videos, and we'll see which window that pops up on. There it is. So on the Tableau server, several hours of free training videos, getting started, connecting, that sort of thing. They also have sample workbooks available. So if you click on the handy, if you click on the handy world indicator sample and you give it a moment, dramatic drum roll. It gives you a pre-built workbook, workbook that you can begin to modify. So this is based on their public data set, the world indicators data, and it has some pre-built visualizations regarding various worldwide statistics. So and this is something you can take apart and you can make changes to, like if you wanted to change a year, say. It's probably not going to be a lot of change in a single year, but you can change filters, and this is completely yours. You can take it, play with it, take it apart, modify it. And it helps with different, you can see the different chart types that they've created. So, and we're not going to say that. All right, so for the workbook itself, it's composed of many different panes. But let's start by looking at the bottom. So the navigation for between the different panes is set up on the bottom. So each tab, this the way that the Tableau workbooks are set up are similar to how like Excel workbooks are set up, where you have separate worksheets at the bottom, and there are different tabs you can tab through. And so the nomenclature carries through for the worksheet in Tableau. So this particular one is a Tableau worksheet, as is this one. So this is a Tableau worksheet. And the worksheets are kind of the main powerhouse of working with Tableau. They're the ones that you create individual visualizations in. And so you're doing filtering and math and displays and in the worksheet. And then, so this particular one is a worksheet. Now I hope you can see my cursor here at the bottom. Let me, just to be clear. So I'm talking about this section at the bottom of the screen here. Okay, so this particular tab is a worksheet. So in Tableau, there's also the idea of a tab being a dashboard. And so a dashboard is essentially can contain multiple worksheets. They can be tiled, or they can float over each other. And then you can have filter controls and other things on this side. So this has 3 worksheets in it. And then you can, within here, you can modify the worksheet and move things around, say, that sort of thing. So there's a worksheet, and then there's there's a tab that's a worksheet, there's a tab that's a dashboard. Now there's another tab type, and that is a storyboard. And so a storyboard is kind of like a slideshow, similar to like maybe PowerPoint. So you can, within a storyboard, you can have multiple worksheets or multiple dashboards, and you can have them embedded and be able to click through. Okay. So also on the bottom, let's see, there are navigation components in the bottom right. And so what they allow you to do, if I get my mouse control back, there we go. So right now it's just showing the different tabs, the different worksheets and dashboards listed on the bottom. If you want to see a little more detail, you can change this so that gives you a little thumbnail of each particular one. And then if you want to see it in like big icon form, that you can change that setting over there. If there's so many that you can't see them on a single page, like if this were to extend all the way out to the right, then these buttons would activate and you can navigate back and forth through the list of different tabs. So the one area that I did not just talk about was the data source. And so this is the bottom left corner. So the data source tab is how you control the data that's coming into the Tableau workbook. So it's from there that you can set like a Excel workbook, or connect to a database, or connect to a database and write SQL code if you're interested in that. So all that can happen in that data pane. So for now, I'm going to put this one away, and we're going to start from scratch. So if you're following along with your copy of Tableau Desktop, you can follow along at this point. So we're going to use one of the built-in data sets with Tableau, and it's called World Indicators. So in this case, because it's World Indicators and it's a built-in data source, it doesn't take you through the prompt of editing the data source. But let's click into the data source real quick. And you can see that there's this data source here. Now, if you wanted to, you could bring in additional data sources by adding them. For example, like an Oracle database or a text file. If you have like a CSV, excuse me, file, something you might export out of Excel, or an Excel file, or many other different types of data. You can see them here. One thing that we're doing nowadays, now that Dropbox is the new box, you can connect to spreadsheets that are on Dropbox. So if you want to have a data source that you can update and then have that data feed into Tableau, then you can connect to a workbook on Dropbox. And the nice thing about that is that Dropbox is HIPAA compliant, that sort of thing. Whereas you can also connect to Google Drive, but then you have to make sure that no HIPAA data or patient data or anything is on there. So you have to be careful. All right, so, but in this case, we're not going to add anything to this particular data source. We're just gonna use it as is, but data source can be as simple as a single like Excel workbook or a CSV file. Interestingly, you can also use PDF files. So if you have, like, I know the federal government likes publishing like these tables and things in PDF files. Tableau can recognize tables in PDF files. It's pretty cool. All right, so, which otherwise you'd have to kind of scrape out, copy and paste, put it into Excel, and it gets messy. All right, moving on. So, all right, so I wanted to talk about the layout of the Tableau screen here. So now that we have a data source, we can talk about it a little bit more. So on the left here is what they call the sidebar. And so this lists all of the data fields that are available in the data source that you had brought in. So on this, you'll notice that some of the items are blue and some of them are green. And so in Tableau, the data fields are divided into two categories. Dimensions is one, and the other one is measures. So dimensions are things like categories or types, things that can't be easily added together or don't make sense to add together. Measures are typically things that are numeric. So number of people in the United States, the sales tax, the number of patients seen in a year, things like that. Numbers that you can perform math on are generally measures. Numbers and text are generally dimensions. And you can convert between them. So if you have something, dates are kind of in between. There can be categorical. If you're breaking out months, they can be numeric if you're like counting the number of days. So you can switch them between things being a dimension or a measure. And the way that you do that is through the handy right-clicking on a particular column or field, and you can change the data type. So in this case, or you can convert this to a measure. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. You can convert that to a measure, or you can convert that to a dimension or discrete numbers. So again, greens are measures and blues are dimensions in this data source. So the sidebar is where the data lives. You can search for particular fields. Like if we are going to look at population, you could start searching and it'll bring up the fields that match that. All right, so next, the other things that are visible on the view, starting at the top roughly, there's the pages. The pages card. Pages card is for if you're doing animations. We won't cover that here because that's getting a bit more in depth. But one thing that is very commonly used is filters. So this is if you have things in your data, you want to limit it. You want a particular department, say, or a particular country. In this data set, country, or if you wanted CO2 emissions above a certain level, then you could filter that in this. Next, the marks card. The marks card is where you it allows you to control the visualizations that you have seen or that you're developing, so that you can add color, you can change the font size, you can add something called a tooltip. We'll talk about in a little bit, and then detail is a little more obscure, and we'll talk about that later. So this is how you're controlling the appearance of what is going onto your screen. Next, we have the columns. The columns card. So the columns cards where you drop fields and have them appear on the x-axis. So if you want to have like a monthly summary, you would drag a date, or you would drag the monthly date to the columns card, and then it would display left to right. The rows column is similar to the columns in that it will be the values that are going up and down. So essentially the y-axis, okay? And then finally, you have the main sheet where all the magic happens is in that area, this big area here. So, and also if you have a visualization that has color, then a legend will appear on this side. It will be a legend card. And you can also add the filters live here, but if you want them to be visual, available for like the user to use, then they'll appear in a card on the right as well. Okay, so now we've covered dimensions, we covered the different cards on this view. Next, we talk about the different data types. So Tableau, when you bring data in, will attempt to recognize what kind of data is stored in that column, in a particular column. So for example, in this case, the region is set to be a string. So a string is just letters, numbers, well, mainly letters, maybe some numbers, but something you can't perform math on, like a text message, the name of a country, the name of a state, all those would be text fields. Other data types that are available, we can see here, date alone, a date and time, so a timestamp essentially, a whole number, and decimal numbers. So whole numbers would be like a number of chickens in the farmer's barn. The decimal numbers would be like dollars and cents, percentages, that sort of thing. All right, so now we've talked about the layout of the screen. I want to talk about filters. And now most of the filtering happens in this pane, but where filtering really starts is on the data pane, which you can say you could set before the data even reaches the workbook that you're working in. You can filter out, say, a year and have it say you only wanted like the last 5 years of the data set. I know this data set ends in 2012, so it's not as exciting. So say the last 5 years, you could select those, and then when you bring them into your data source, then it's only listing the ones that were selected in that were filtered or allowed through the filter in the data source. So the data source filter is the first level of filtering. There's also an extract filter, which is similar. So the idea is that if you absolutely do not want that data or need that data in your data source, in your workbook, you can filter it out right here, and then it doesn't make it all the way through. So we're gonna clear that. And then, so you can also filter at this level. So this is this year field is a considered date. So you can have a range. You can do it as a range of dates, or you can filter by individual years. These other ones don't make any sense for this particular date field because it's stored as December 1st of each year. And so there's not going to be a lot of information that you're going to be able to see. So 5 years. So I'm just going to bring in all of the years, and then we can work on it from there. So the view filters, there are multiple levels in filtering. So the first level is the data source filter. The next level is what they call a context filter. The third level is this version right here. So you can tell that it's a context filter if the filter pill is gray. Oh yes, these are called pills because they're round and they look like pills. So a context filter just gets applied before other filters that aren't context filters. And then and so also when you have the filter at this level, you can choose how you want to apply it. You can have it apply to just this worksheet that you're working on, in this case, sheet 1. You can have it apply to all worksheets that you will be creating against this data source. So if I knew I was going to have a particular field, a particular type that I wanted just this to be applied across the entire workbook, I could do that here. Or I could, if there are multiple sheets, but there aren't yet, on this data source, I could selectively apply it to individual sheets. And so it allows you to choose which sheets you want that filter to apply to. I know, hopefully this is something that will be useful. It'll be more useful later once we're actually building. All right. So another thing, so we've talked about filtering, we've talked about some of the setup for all of this. So one thing that you can do is, let's take a look. So let's bring the countries in. So this is all the countries in this World Indicators data source. Now it may be that, and there's also this region field here, but maybe you want only a certain group. You want to be able to group a certain cluster of countries together and be able to differentiate them from another cluster of countries. So what you can do is create what's called a group. Now, a group is something that you can apply against dimensions. And so what this allows you to do, say, is like, for example, for this region, we can see that there's, well, we would be able to see that there was the Americas here if that was more space, had more space. So let's say you wanted just like North America, you wanted maybe like Mexico, Canada, and the United States. What you could do is create a group based on the countries. And it allows you to lump together. So let's see, United States. And Canada only has 3 A's. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially making a bin. And I'll call this North America. And so what I can do here is I can use this as a filter, North American other. I can bring it into the viz that's already sort of here. And so I can highlight, maybe I wanted these to be first, or I could do other things with this. So this is one way of using a group to classify a series of dimensions. And so you can have multiple groups, you can rename them. It's pretty flexible and pretty useful. So this is one way of being able to group things together. That's fairly straightforward. So the next thing I want to talk about is your basic ability to aggregate. Now going back to the measures. So sum of birth rate doesn't make sense. So let's look at population. So the measures can be aggregated. So Tableau has the ability to do your pretty basic standard aggregation, sum, average, median, count, that sort of thing. And and that becomes a big part of a lot of the calculations that you do. And one thing that's really important to note is the data source that you're working with. You have to be aware of what they call the granularity of that data source is when you're working with it. For example, this particular data source, the granularity is there's one record per country per year for the series of years that are available. It's really important to know what that is, because when you're connecting different data sources together, if the granularity is different, you may have to do some calculations and manipulations in order to not like overstate. Like for example, if you're to link this data set, which is one row per year per country, to maybe another data set that is just has a row per person in each country, say, or province, say, then what will end up happening is that if you look at the population total, you have to be aware that you're summing over the total number of states in each country, and there are some complexities that happen with that. So staying aware of that, knowing what the data set's granularity is really important for being able to work with that data, especially when you're relating it to other data sources. All right. So again, this is all kind of foundational background. So let me bring up. So next I want to talk about calculations. So let me bring in country. I think this is probably going to be easier to do this way. And let's just bring in North America. All right. So if we look at the population, I happen to know that these are the proportion of the population, not the actual number of people in each country. So essentially the percentage in decimal form. But say I wanted to know what the actual population was as opposed to the percentage. So I have a total population here. So what I might want to do, so in this case, there's a total number and they change the format. So I'm going to just modify the format on this so I can see the decimals. All right. That gave me one of them. Okay. So the idea is that sometimes you'll need to transform this data in order to get into something that you want. So in this case, I don't want the percentage. I want the actual, estimated number. All right. So what I need to do is essentially do math, convert this from a percentage again to and multiply these two together in order to get the population over 65 in Canada in the year 2012. So what I might do is create what they call a calculation. So calculations are really flexible, essentially little snippets of programming that allow you to do math and modify. There's a whole suite of things you can do with calculations. So let's just start with this example, and then we can maybe talk about that a little bit. Population total. So and so I've combined these two fields together and gotten a new number. These two numbers together, combined this number and this number together, and gotten a new number here that is essentially a transformation, a combination of the two fields. And there's many, many different other kinds of populations or calculations that you can do. And the full list of different functionality that's available is provided in here. There's quite a lot. So you can do convert numbers convert numbers in different signs, make them positive. There's some trigonometry functions here. We spent a lot of time doing date functions, so being able to extract dates, convert a date to the month, convert a date to year, create fiscal year calculations, just as an example. So there's quite a bit that you can do here. I'm not really getting a lot into that right now. But just there is a lot of functionality that you can do there as well. So let me go back to the population, and I think I do want to keep the year to be a single year. So I'm going to keep 2012, and I'm going to, let's try country. Let's bring this up here. So, I want to talk about table calcs here. So let's see, what would be a good choice? Let's bring the years back. And let's just take a look at one country. Let's try the United States. And we'll keep that to bar chart. All right, so what we can do is we can make this so that it is, there's a table calculation. So in this case, this is showing the difference in population year over year. Let's see, maybe I can bring. So in this case, this bottom row represents the number of the population for these individual years. The top row represents the difference between the individual years. And you can see the scales are slightly different. So this is what's called a table calculation. So it's actually taking the data that's displayed on the screen and making calculations on it relative to a previous row or a previous column, that sort of thing. And so they're very powerful, and they get used quite a bit when we're doing Tableau development. So, all right, so now I want to talk about different chart examples. So I wanted to start, I like the population data here. So say I wanted to see a list of the populations by year. Okay, and I want the countries. But I want it to just show the table of data. So in this case, oh, there we go. So the first place that most people start when they're doing data viz is they start with a data table similar to this one. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like what you might be used to seeing in something like Excel. And so it's a perfectly viable visualization. The only thing is that it's a little difficult to see. You know, you can see there's some big numbers like Bangladesh. And there's going to be bigger numbers on here. But what you might want to see is you want to be able to tell which ones are the highest and which ones are the lowest. And so there's a simple version of this that is the heat map. So it's essentially this chart with color. So what we can do is, so we'll change this over to squares. No, squares. Sorry, I appear to be missing a lot today. And so right away, you can see that China, which was a little bit hard to see before, now really stands out as a higher population. So this makes it a little bit easier to focus in on the things that are really high and really low. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ones that are really low. So that doesn't, it's a little bit harder to see those because there's a lot of really light blue here. So this one is so I'm going to go ahead and name this worksheet as a heat map world population. And so, but I mean, so this is one way you could represent this data. The heat map allows you to see the hotspots, and maybe that's something you want to take action on. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this and get rid of that. So another way that you might want to see it is, so let's just bring in one single year. So we'll bring in 2012. And let's take a look at it. Oh, bar chart. There we go. All right. So now we have a list. We could see this as a bar chart. Very nice. But probably, like, say you wanted to focus on the ones that are the most populated. So there's a built-in sort that'll allow you to sort the largest ones at the top, or vice versa, smallest ones. St. Martin. I'll bring that up. But say we want to talk about the ones that are the biggest. But say you didn't want, you just want to talk about the 10 biggest. You don't want to talk about everything past that. So there is one of those table functions. So if I take population total, and I'll convert this into a table function called rank. So rank is, the first, second, it generates a number for where they are in the list. So this would be first, second, third, fourth, etc. So I'm going to make a table calculation that's rank. I'm going to tell it to compute using the country. And I'll put this in as a calculation. So say I want just the top 10. So now I have a bar chart that shows the top 10 countries by population in the year 2012. If I wanted to be even more fancy, I can bring in and make it color coded so that you can see that the population of India and China in 2012 is at least 3 or 4 times as large as the United States. Or the other countries. So this would be an example of a bar chart. And then you could have it either way. You could have it vertically or horizontal. This one's probably better horizontal, I would think, because it's a little more compact, but still the same amount of data is visible, and you can read the labels. Let's see. So with this kind of chart where there's a scale at the bottom, there you can modify, you can format this axis. Like, for example, you can see that these numbers don't have commas. So maybe you would want to add that. So if you change the axis, and say we wanted, I don't know, millions, sure. So that cleans, you can modify that and have the format be whatever you want. You can have show thousands, millions, billions. You can also modify this label. And I'll just take this off because we're already in the title, we're saying it's a population. So no need to repeat. Let's see, so that would be one example of, this is no longer heat map. So let's change this over to the horizontal bar chart. 2012. And we'll get rid of the 2. The nice thing about this is that So in Tableau, a lot of times when I'm working is I'll build up a worksheet and then I'll make copies of it to either make modifications or, I have the filters and the things laid out the way that I want. So say that I wanted, a line chart. So say I just wanted one country. So let's just look at China and say, let's get rid of year. And then, well, we don't want to get rid of year, sorry. We want to bring that in as, we don't need that. All right, so this is the population of China, according to the data set. But say I don't want to use a bar chart anymore. Say I want to have it be a line chart. And say I also wanted to see the calculation that I had made. Let's see, where did that went? So we can see this, we can project both of these on the same same screen as two different lines. Now there's other ways we could do this, so let's do that. And then if I bring this in, that didn't do what I was hoping. Oh yes, I should also point out that there's the move undo button, which gets used quite a lot to back out of changes that you may have made. Let's see. Let's bring in. So I'm going to remove all of these. I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to keep the total population. And then I'm going to bring this here, and I'm going to get rid of this. All right, so according to these numbers, so what I've done is it's a dual line chart. So there's the total population for China in the years 2008 through 2012, and then the calculated field that we created earlier, the population that are 65 and older, are represented in this line. This is the total population. So this would be an example of a line chart. And if these labels are overwhelming, then you can modify them. And maybe just put it at the end. All right. I'm running a little bit low on time, so I think I'd like to switch over to Tableau server real quick. But one thing I'd like to do before we do that is I can bring over and make a dashboard really quick of all of the different worksheets that I've created up until this point. And there's formatting options that are available as well. So you can change pretty much if you just right click on the item, it'll allow you to format it. You can make the font bigger and bold. And stuff like that. So it's pretty common to make that. Most dashboards have like a section that is maybe a summary of numbers that would be a lot larger. And so there are other chart types that I did not get to. Quick review, or a quick place to see the built-in chart types is under the Show Me tab on the upper right corner. So you can see the standard chart types that are available within Tableau. There's also a lot of flexibility that you can make many different chart types that aren't a part of the standard palette by combining and making settings and that sort of thing. So, all right. So that's all the time I have to cover this piece right here. So the other thing is that I would like to go to the Tableau server and talk about the structure of that real quick. So let me bring up a clean window. So I wasn't logged in. All right, so Tableau server. So the U of M has several Tableau servers. So Central Campus has one, Michigan Medicine has one. Michigan Medicine is HIPAA compliant, so you can store HIPAA data on it, and only Michigan Medicine people can log on. So whereas the Central Campus one does not have the restriction. And actually, there you can have public dashboards run off the central campus server. And so I would use a lot of caution for publishing anything there that might be problematic, but I'm using public data sets and things, so it's not an issue. All right, so the structure of each Tableau server it's broken up into individual sites. As you can see, I have a number of them here. The primary one that I have been using is the Michigan Medicine Tableau site. The Tableau server is broken up into different folders or projects, and within those folders and projects, there can be subfolders. For example. And so on the Tableau server, you can publish up workbooks such as the one I was working on in Tableau Desktop, and then they would get stored in a particular project folder. The other thing that can be published to the Tableau servers are data sources. So the data source that you develop within Tableau Desktop, you can publish up as a data source on Tableau server. And the cool thing about that is that if you have a data source that's published up, so this is something I published up yesterday. It's an excerpt of the National Survey of Children's Health. And so if you have the data source published to the Tableau server, you can create a new workbook on the Tableau server using the web editing functionality. And you'll see the layout is fairly similar to what you'd see in Tableau Desktop. There are limitations. There's some things you can't do. It's kind of like Tableau Desktop Lite at this point. But you can bring in data, for example, list of the states. You can filter. That sort of thing. So you can create a new dashboard on the Tableau server as long as if there is a data source that's available. And I believe that's available for anyone who's in Michigan Medicine, as long as they have access to the data source. So in this case, let's see. In this case, this data source I believe is open to everyone that's on this call. So another functionality of a data source on Tableau server is this new functionality in Tableau server called Ask Data. So Ask Data is a functionality similar to like a Google type search. So if you wanted like, so it thinks about what you said and gives you an option, and when you select it, it gives you a visualization based upon the text that you've typed in. You can add or remove specific, like say you wanted to exclude 2016. It's not terrifically fast. So in this case, I asked it to remove null, and it thought I said no, but you can change that, accept. So of the children in this survey, of the children that were surveyed in 2016 across the United States, about 6,200 of the children said they had asthma, and about 43,000 said they did not. So there it gives you the option to make changes and other things. Here, I guess we don't have time to really go into that a great deal. And then once you have this in place, you can save it, and it's a workbook that's on the Tableau server. I'm going to go ahead and save this in the user content folder, and I will call it Dan Test 2. And so now this is a workbook that's on the Tableau server, which can be edited, and you can make changes from here using the editor. So Ask Data is a kind of a quick way to get started into building a simple visualization. as long as that data is published on the Tableau server and the data source is set to allow Ask Data, it's something that you can work with. It's still kind of in its beginning phases. So as you can see, that wasn't terrifically fast, but it's it helps lower the bar for people to start looking at analytics and other things. I only have a couple more things left. You can set up custom filters on this page that are custom to you for a particular workbook. And you can also subscribe to a workbook. So as the data changes, if an alert happens, you can have it, well, you can have it sent to you like every day, every week, every month, or you can also set it to trigger. So if there's a particular condition that happens, you can have it send you a message on that. And so that's kind of it. I know we're really short on time. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. Are there any questions?
No questions? I just have a simple one. Dan, there's a fairly, are there regular meetings for the Tableau user community here on campus or in the,
Yes.
in the town? There are, and the links that we have from previously that you showed, folks can just sort of get on a email distribution list and be.
I can send more information. So there is a number of different user groups for Tableau that occur.
Okay.
So within the med community, there's a group called Pterodactyl that meets every couple of weeks. And so they talk about data and Tableau, as well as Tableau and other data needs and within the Michigan medicine community. There is a user group on campus, the general campus, that meets every like quarter or so, as well as some other groups that are related to business intelligence, community practice, and that sort of thing. There is in the next few weeks, I believe it's on the 21st, there's the Tableau Symposium on campus. It's a group of people, Tableau users, talking about Tableau. They're going to have some representatives from Tableau. They're discussing some of the new features. And as well as there's other user groups in the area as well. There's a Detroit Tableau user group and others. So as well as online communities.
So very active. Awesome.
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great presentation, really excellent. And the recording of the presentation will be on the CHEAR website once we edit the transcription. Any last questions? All right, I think we're good. And thank you so much, Dan. Again, an excellent presentation.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Good to see you.